Why do thoughts happen in your head and not like in your foot? I think the first way that we need to do this ontologically is break down exactly what is a thought.
Okay.
Right? So
I have an app for that, my ontological
Oh yeah?
app.
Is it an onto-epistemological app that breaks down?
It was $2.99.
Oh my goodness. I hope they're in-app purchases.
And it's all color-coded so you don't get confused.
Oh, good.
But I only have the demo version.
Oh.
Yeah.
Do they have what is a thought? Because this is a deep question, especially in the era of scientific material reductionism, where we're so focused on studying the brain and synapses and believe that, like...
They have what is a fish.
Ooh, what's a fish?
It's a little animal that lives in the sea. It swims. It has
$2.99 well spent, my
gills,
friend.
Right? Well, now you know.
Everyone wants to say it's in the brain, right? But what is a thought? And I believe that a thought is like a literal word that you hear. That you hear it. And that's why it happens in your head, because that's where your ears are. And thought have to do with our sense of like auditory learning, that we hear thoughts, and that's what makes them thoughts. Or we say thoughts, and that's what makes them thoughts. Sometimes I don't have a thought until I say it aloud, and I say something like, well, I think, and then all of a sudden there's a thought. Like a thought is almost like a verbal or linguistic phenomenon.
Right, that's interesting. I actually heard Jordan Peterson recently ask a crowd if they thought in language, like if they thought in words, like if they heard it, or if they saw it, or if they felt it, like, or if it was a shape.
Right, exactly. Like there are all these different sensory categories of perception, and some people I think have more occupied channels of perception. They might be more feelers, they might be more visual, but I think it is possible to see images or to like sense feelings. But there's something particular to a thought that is a phenomenon of language. I think that's how it happens in our head.
Right. Not to mention language also kind of defines your thoughts.
Absolutely, yeah.
In the sense that it is like the encasing of whatever that ethereal idea stuff is.
Yeah.
Like it's like it's the rebar of that ethereal idea stuff. Like it gives it its infrastructure and
totally. And unless you take, like psychedelics or visited by grace or zest, then your reality is literally limited by the extent to which you can language.
Fish mustard. Yeah, well, or if you can, and I think that's one of the things that psychedelics does, is it allows you to get real loose. Because I feel like even just kind of loosening up that fabric, if like that ethereal thought stuff is the tangible, manipulatable, like stretchy matter, and then the language or the bones. Like I feel like the more we spend in one state of mind, the tighter it gets, and the more rigidity is, like the more it's like cemented in, and it's like you're working with like cinder blocks. And I feel like that's what psychedelics can do, is it can really allow you to loosen up that fabric and then kind of make new creations when it gets real loose and stretchy, where you're kind of like, oh, okay, what about this? And then you flip things and take the light and point it somewhere else, and then before you know it, you have a whole new process that you formed, because once you change where the light's coming from, how the prism is shining, and then the whole shape of the material in which you're working with, whether it be your foot or a mustard fish, then there's way more possibilities. But I think I took that somewhere else.
I like where you took it. Oh, right. I think the other reason why, like Terence McKenna, he said like reality is language, but I don't think he was saying like it's, I think he was saying it from like a trickster angle, where in terms of what we agree upon as reality is about what can be languaged. And then psychedelics come in and they open up all of these unspeakable, unlanguageable experiences, and it loosens you up from the entire fabric of consensus reality, like you were saying, but also that reality is language if we let it be. Like if we're stuck and like one-to-one glued to a linguistic ability to articulate our experience, then we'll only be able to live within the confines of what can be articulated, and that will be reality. But it seems almost like a prison sentence, as opposed to understanding there are all of these other tones and textures and sensory apparatus that we have to experience life. And if you free yourself from language's reality, then the portals begin to open.
Word. Yeah. Unless you're able to consistently create language, to create a language for every novel experience that you open yourself up to, which I think is a really fun practice and like a legitimate form of divination. Because one can spur the other, because you can access by creating language and by liquefying language and redefining it and coming up with novel and previously unconstructed dialects that can actually help shed light on some of the dark tunnels of peripheral perception.
Totally, and bring it into conscious awareness. It's also about how you use language, like when you engage in something like that, like wordplay or like describing your present moment experience, you're actually in the present. You're actually using language to terraform, to like create the landscape of the moment. Whereas the traditional conventions of language are describing the past or the future. And so they automatically put you in an egoic time signature.
Mustard fish.
Of locating yourself as a separate individual in space and time. Which brings me to the other thing that was on my list, which is like recently I've noticed that most people, I don't want to say most people, like me and some of the people I interact with, it's like you almost approach your life as like this problem that you're trying to solve. Like it's like a riddle or a puzzle or a level of a game that you're trying to get out of. It's like, whenever I engage in mental exercises reflecting on my life, there's always this underlying feeling like I'm trying to solve some type of problem or equation, or like get from A to B.
Figure it out.
And then I have these like, which is like, where the fuck does that, like, when did life become a problem? Is life a problem?
Yeah, man. That
feels like it.
Feels like it sometimes.
And I feel like there are these fallback stories where, like, when I feel like it's a problem I'm not doing very well at solving, I'll have like stories that I fall back on that I know make me feel bad, that I'll then tell myself.
Yeah, and I think that actually like lends credence to like your life will be a problem if it's approached as such.
Yeah.
Which is why like framing things in the right way and being aware of the way that you're framing things is so important.
Totally.
Because like, if you approach things as like mustard fish, then
then it's all just mustard fish.
Yeah. I remember when I spit on somebody's forehead once on accident, and I was smoking a cigarette.
Right.
And I meant to blow smoke out. I was in a circle of people, and I meant to blow smoke out, and my signals crossed. And instead of blowing smoke out, I spit straight up into the air onto this guy's.
Did it land on your forehead?
Onto this guy's forehead. No. It landed on this other guy's forehead.
Did he stub his toe?
No, I actually mixed up my stories, and that story doesn't have anything to do with the prior point. I was thinking about this other time that I spit into the wind, but then I decided that this other story was a better story.
End of podcast. Murps and Zurpzzz.
Been where you find me at.
Been where you find me at.